Frauds claiming to tackle fraud. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. What a spectacle we witnessed yesterday when California's Attorney General shuffled out to a podium to announce arrests in a $267 million hospice fraud scheme in his state. For weeks now, several media outlets and independent journalists have been exposing just how pitiful people like Rob Bonta are and Gavin Newsom, the leadership in California, how bad they really are, with stories of immense fraud that we have seen, entire buildings full of fake hospice centers raking in millions of dollars, fraud so brazen, so large that Americans again are reminded that there is absolutely nobody looking after the trillions of dollars we send to our government every year. None of these people care at all. Just to look at some of the headlines, a splatter of them that we've seen in just recent weeks and just the last couple of months. They're everywhere about fraud. As the media has jumped in on this story, at least the real media has jumped in on the story. Here's how it has sounded.
A CBS News investigation into hospices found an industry ripe for fraud, especially in California.
He's accused of living the high life to the tune of $23 million instead of using public and taxpayer funds to help the homeless.
14 people were arrested accused of stealing more than $25 million in COVID-19 relief funds.
What we have learned is there's roughly $3.5 billion of fraud taking place here in Los Angeles.
Just some of what we've seen, and the story is a big problem, not only for Rob Bonta, the AG of California, but also for Gavin Newsom. The condition of the state that he's run since 2019 is already his biggest liability. California has fallen apart. The nicest place to live in the world is somehow bleeding residents and companies to states like Nevada, to deserts. The state budget has doubled, and there is nothing to show for it. In fact, the state is actually worse with all of that additional spending. A terrible resume for a presidential hopeful. The last thing Gavin Newsom needs right now is a story about how he let criminals steal billions and billions and tens of billions of dollars while he's been raising taxes on his constituents. So Gavin, who has been very much hiding from this story, called up his attorney general and told him to find some fraud and get on TV immediately. And so we got what we saw yesterday.
Operation Skip Trace uncovered and ended a hospice fraud scheme that defrauded Medi-Cal of $267 million. So just to be clear, $250 million. And arrested 5 suspects so far. We have been doing this work for years. We've been doing it successfully before certain people in this country decided to think about it for the first time. This is our area of expertise. It's our bread and butter. It's what we do. California has a no-tolerance policy for fraud. We're laser focused. They're just thinking about this issue for the first time. They're late to the party. We've been doing this work for years. This is about real work, real people, real taxpayer money.
It's comical to listen to this. Comical to listen to this. That is a terrified politician, and he should be terrified. He's up for re-election this year. And as you know, there's almost zero accountability for politicians in California most of the time. The supermajority allows Democrats to run the state into the ground with almost zero political risk. They just keep getting elected over and over again as the state collapses and falls apart. This story is the first time these people have been scared, though, in a long time, because this story is a sobering slap in the face for their brain-dead electorate in that state. Even mindless California Democrat voters can see just how much of a disaster this is. Even the biggest sycophants for people like Gavin Newsom don't like paying taxes, don't understand why the state's budget has doubled, and don't like to see billions of dollars being stolen as the rest of it is squandered. It's a story that hit as hard as the wildfire disaster, which woke a lot of people up in California. This is another big hit against that regime that has taken over that state for the last 20 years and turned it into whatever the hell California is now. And if you're wondering how all of these journalists like Nick Shirley and, now CBS is jumping into it, other independent journalists, Chris Rufo, you've got Dr. Oz doing investigations from his position in the White House, how they've been able to so quickly find billions and tens of billions of dollars in fraud in that state that the leadership missed. It's because the leadership, A, doesn't care to find it, and B, people like Rob Bonta spend most of their time just going after Trump, to appease California's TDS voter base. And that's how they stay in power. They obsess over Donald Trump. Bonta even made a campaign ad out of all the media clippings that showcase his pure obsession with suing Donald Trump all the time instead of doing his actual job.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta filed a lawsuit challenging the president's executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta is suing the Trump administration over the deployment of the National Guard.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta is taking legal action against the Trump administration again.
With the dramatic music behind it, too. Just part of the reason why Rob Bonta and Gavin Newsom missed what is now estimated to be $180 billion in fraud since Gavin came into power in that state. $180 billion. Bonta bragging about catching 0.1% of that estimated total stolen out of California yesterday. $267 million sounds like a ton of money, right? And it is a ton of money until you realize the horrific scale of fraud in California and you realize it's nothing. That likely around 20% of the state's total revenue is stolen, meaning several million California taxpayers every year, several million people living in California are sending their state taxes straight into the pockets of thieves. Millions of people are just saying, here's my taxes for the year, and it just goes directly to thievery. Can you fathom that? And nobody cared. Nobody cared until independent journalists made the incompetence go viral. Do you realize the federal funding allocated to California's Medi-Cal program has nearly tripled in just 10 years? Tripled in 10 years. Most of the increases, of course, happening under Joe Biden during COVID. Think about how many people in our federal government, in California's government, watched the spending for Medi-Cal triple in 10 years, completely aware of what that means and did absolutely nothing because it's not their money. They don't care. Why in the hell do we pay taxes to these people? Gavin Newsom, with a completely fraudulent personality, now posing as a leader in protecting American tax dollars after Rob Bonta's big news conference yesterday, saying California is again leading the charge against large-scale identity theft and hospice fraud. By the way, here's how Newsom responded when Somali daycare fraud warrior Nick Shirley began exposing the fraud in California. When Shirley left Minnesota and went to California, Newsom put this up. Hey, can I see your kids? Calling this young man that's doing Gavin Newsom's job a pervert. Saying, they're trying to discredit him with a post like that. That's from the governor of the state. Shirley responding today. You tried to paint me as a pervert for exposing fraud, and as a result, radical leftists started trying to dox me and send me death threats, wanting to kill me. Now you are taking credit for leading the charge on fraud? Are you serious? You are the fraud. Well said. Bill Essayli is the first assistant U.S. attorney for the Central District in California, and he joins us. And Bill, good to see you. Gavin and Rob Bonta say they are leading the charge on fraud in the state, and people like you have been making up a lot of fake claims. What do you say?
Well, I'm just glad they joined the party. I mean, there's a lot of fraud to go around, so I'm glad that Mr. Bonta found time to take away from filing frivolous lawsuits against us every day to actually do his job, which is to protect the taxpayers and the citizens of the state of California who have been ripped off for probably the last decade due to the policies of Sacramento.
Is it just the craziest thing in the world that a $267 million fraud fine is really nothing compared to what the estimations are? What do you make of that $180 billion estimate that I've heard Chris Rufo throw around, the numbers that came from HHS? You think that's about on par?
It sounds about right to me, because just think about this. In the last 2 weeks, we had our own operation. In one day, we took out about $60 million of fraud, the cases we charged. The following week, we got a guilty plea from a guy who stole almost $200 million from the state of California's Medi-Cal. One guy, $200 million in an 11-month period, because California suspended its fraud prevention measures. It required prior authorization to bill. They suspended that, and this guy took advantage of it, and he put through $200 million of bills. California paid it, no questions asked. Then they come to us and they ask us to help prosecute and get the money back. And so, okay, so you got 60 million, another 200 million, and then Bonta announces 260 million. So in 2 weeks' work, we're ready at $500 million.
Yeah.
I think the number is going to be staggering by the end of this.
You know what the real problem is that when you have a political party that survives by putting as many people on the dole as possible. I mean, the way they survive is getting as many people signed up for whatever various government programs they create. That's their core constituency. Those people will never vote against them. When you have that, the larger that group of people is, the more people that are taking from the government, you know you have secured, that's a larger base. Why would you ever want to go in and stop people from taking from the dole? Why would you ever want to stop people, even if it is fraudulent? If people see money there and they're taking it, they're going to vote for you.
Of course, there's that. And also, they don't want to do anything that's going to slow the flow of money out of the government. Out to people. And so the way they measure success, I used to be a legislator in Sacramento. The way they measure success is by how much tax dollars they spent. You know, we spent X amount on homelessness. We spent X amount on healthcare. They don't care what the result is, where the money goes. That's how they measure success. And then they figure, well, fraud's just the cost of doing business, and we'll go deal with that afterwards. No, we're done with that. And so between me and Dr. Oz is working to turn the spigot off. No more money out the door to red flag payers. So we want to stop the money from going out, and then we want to go arrest and prosecute everyone who took money unlawfully.
Yeah, I can't watch stories like this and continue to pay taxes. So somebody's going to have to, you're going to have to figure out a way to stop this, because who in the hell is going to send money to the government if they're just going to piss it away so egregiously? It's such a slap in the face. And Bill, we appreciate you doing the hard work of trying to hold these people to account. Thank you, Bill Essayli. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Abel Maldonado is a former lieutenant governor of California. He joins us now along with California resident and political analyst Katie Zacharia. We've got a couple big stories. We're going to start here on the fraud. We're also going to talk about Eric Swalwell here in a second, so gear up for that. Abel, I want to start, though, with the fraud and your reaction to Gavin Newsom's attempt and Rob Bonta's attempt at being in charge of fraud in the state.
Well, Rob, first of all, thank you for having me. And I got to tell you, my hat's off to Nick Shirley, what went on in Minnesota. In Minnesota, I said it from the get-go on your show, and I believe you said it too. Minnesota was junior league. Minnesota is nothing compared to California. California is the big fish, and there's a lot of fraud. For example, IHSS, in-home support services. It's a noble program. It's to help people that are very sick, elderly, or young individuals who have disabilities. And all of a sudden, over the years, we have 800,000 providers for 800,000 recipients, Rob, to the tune of billions of dollars with zero accountability. The Democrat Party in California, Rob, actually forces you to unionize when you're going to take care of your mom. So not only are you a worker of the state, you get benefits, you're a union member, and guess what? Zero accountability. I actually had a bill, Rob, to put a time clock in everybody's home so these workers can come in, punch the clock, and oh no, that's being over aggressive. So in essence, the fraud has gone on. And the only reason we're looking at this is because Gavin Newsom wants to be president. So he's going to, so all of a sudden, he's got Rob Bonta. Rob Bonta would have been a nobody if he wasn't appointed by Gavin. So he's got his little puppy dog over there trying a little bit of fraud so he can run for president. Rob, that's it.
It's exactly right. I got to leave the fraud story just based on time. But, Katie, I do want to talk about Swalwell. That's the other big story tonight. Eric Swalwell, the congressman, the leading Democrat for California governor in your state, accused of sexual assault. It's in the San Francisco Chronicle, the article. It's big paper. A former staffer saying that Swalwell assaulted her when she was too intoxicated to consent just 2 years ago. The Chronicle republishing the article. The woman claiming that he coerced her into performing oral sex on him in a parking lot after a donor meeting. Also alleges 2019, after going out for drinks, she got too drunk. She doesn't remember the rest of the night, but woke up naked in his bed after sex. Saying it happened again 5 years later, just 2 years ago in 2024 after a charity gala. Says she meets up with him, only remembers snippets of the night, and saying no, forced himself on her, she claims. Chronicle reviewing messages the woman sent to a friend at the time, saying Swalwell sexually assaulted her. This is a disaster. Everyone's fleeing Swalwell right now. His staff are quitting. The endorsements are being pulled. Your thoughts, Katie?
Couldn't happen to a better person.
Right.
Everybody's known this about Swalwell, and it took him deciding he wanted to run for governor to finally bring to light what scum he is. Rob, I think it was on your X post that it was like, this is his obituary. This is the Swalwell obituary. And it's high time that this man gets out of Congress. He did so much bad to our president. He went after him. He lied to him. So lied about him? Are we surprised that this is actually what went on behind closed doors? The key indicator should have been when he was sleeping with a Chinese spy, Fong Fong, and was, hello, we should have gotten rid of him then, but we tolerate this kind of muck for so long, and they continue to proliferate this garbage on people.
Yeah, and real quick, Abel, he was so insufferable during Kavanaugh. He was so indignant. His tweets are being retweeted all over the place. The staff's leaving. He's married with 3 kids. Is there any way to politically survive this?
No way. Bye-bye, Eric Swalwell. He's done. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to just crucify him, and they should. My point that scares me is that if you're a congressman, you're okay to do this. Drain the swamp. It's scary to see that this guy can continue to be a congressman, no problem. But he wants to run for governor of California. They bring it out.
Yeah, he's always been one of the skeeziest guys in Washington. Everybody knew it, as Katie said.
100%, Rob.
Everybody knew it. I got to leave it there. Abel Maldonado, Katie Zacharia, good to see you both. Have a good weekend. President says Iran has no cards and that he's loading up the ships ready to pound Iran even harder if they play any games during tomorrow's big meeting. He says we're going to know what this is like in about 24 hours. Vice Admiral Robert Harward, a retired Navy SEAL and CENTCOM deputy commander who grew up in Iran, joins us next. Then later, Artemis II returns to Earth, set to splash down in the Pacific on the back half of this show. You'll see it here live.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.
So, Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Dad, it's been forever. I need to be in there. Wrap it up. Come on, Dad. It's been forever.
How much longer?
It's been an hour. Are you done yet?
Dale, don't worry. We can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Okay, let's do it.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield from the company trusted in blood tests for cancer for over a decade.
This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone, building on my progress without starting over. Weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
They're militarily defeated, and now we're going to open up the Gulf, or the Strait as they call it, and I think it's going to go pretty quickly, and if it doesn't, we'll be able to finish it off one way or the other. It's JD and Steve and Jared. They have a good team, and they meet tomorrow. We'll see how it all works out.
President updating on the fragile 2-week truce with Iran today as J.D. Vance, the rest of the team, en route to Islamabad, Pakistan. Vance, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner versus Iran's parliament speaker and their minister of foreign affairs. As we said, most of the rest of that regime has been blown away. Before departing for Pakistan, Vance saying this.
We're looking forward to the negotiation. I think it's going to be positive. If the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive.
And the president thinks it won't take too long to figure out which way this is going. He's saying in about 24 hours we'll know. President telling New York Post over the phone, we're loading up the ships with the best ammunition, a higher level than we used to do a complete decimation in case Iran messes around with the negotiations, adding again, we're going to find out in about 24 hours. We're going to know soon, the president says. Also writing on Truth Social, the Iranians don't seem to realize they have no cards other than a short-term extortion of the world by using international waterways. The only reason they are alive today is to negotiate. Vice Admiral Robert Harward is a retired Navy SEAL and Deputy CENTCOM commander. He grew up in pre-revolution Iran. His father was a Navy officer who advised Iran's military under the Shah. And, sir, it's good to have you back on the show. I want to start here. Is it a waste of time to even try to negotiate with these people?
Not at all. I think politically it's important for both sides of the table. We're showing we're making an effort, and that's important to our allies, it's important to our regional partners, and it's important that they're showing up. The question will be, what can they really do? Are these guys empowered to make decisions, or are they going to have to go back to, the IRGC and the Ayatollahs? So it's going to be a dynamic situation, but it's quite obviously, if they aren't going to capitulate, agree to the Straits of Hormuz, this is going to get even more difficult and challenging for them. So their lifelines are coming to a bitter end if they don't get aggressive.
Yeah, there's an outlet, Iran International, reporting that senior Iranian officials locked into dispute over the composition and authority of the delegation. IRGC Commander-in-Chief is seeking to curb the authority of Ghalibaf and Agrachi, the two that are going to this meeting. So it seems like there's a lot of, nobody really knows who's in charge, and there's a power struggle inside of this regime.
Well, I think that struggle is indicative of what's going on in Iran. You've got 60, 70 million people want to be gone of these guys, and these guys, their only means of staying in power is to control, if not own, the straits and launch missiles. So you're starting to see this first cracks between the IRGC, political leaders, business leaders, and the people of Iran. And I think this meeting in itself is so valuable for that. Like the president said to the people of Iran when they were being murdered on the streets, help is on its way.
Yeah.
Help has arrived. And now we're going to see the fruition of that. And if not, it's just going to be increased.
Yeah, if we get to, in 24, 48 hours, if we realize that they're just playing games, they're trying to delay, they're doing the things that they've been doing forever in negotiations with the West and with the United States, what do you think the reaction should be? I mean, what is and what's politically viable, I think, for the president? I think that a lot of people are kind of happy that the war's over. Does he re-engage? I guess he's forced to.
Well, when you say politically viable for this president, I think he's more focused on results. He's one of these guys who's going to do what he knows is back. And I would not be surprised, based on the success of the raid to recover our pilot, that he would conduct a raid. He would actually put boots on the ground, not to occupy, but to illustrate that they can go ashore, they can take ground, and they can leave again. So they're going to continue to bomb, hunt down targets, be it missiles, Navy, and other, but he may expand it to more substantial boots on the ground to illustrate to the Iranian people that help is here in the most definitive way possible, going into Iran and taking locations, if even for a short period of time, to change the internal dynamics of Iran and continue to build, as you see, this discord between political leaders and the IRGC inside Iran.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're going to learn a lot this weekend. Vice Admiral Robert Harward, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up next, a crime so vile it got the president's attention. And then later, as we said, Artemis II returning to Earth here very soon. About 40 minutes it'll splash down just outside San Diego. We're going to have all of that live for you toward the end of this show. It will begin.
I'm Michael Savage, and I was conservative before conservative was cool. Do you realize how crazy the liberals in this country have become? I do. You want to get me started today? I'll get started. Watch Michael Savage and the Savage Nation every Sunday night.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree.
breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Cigna Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Cigna Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Cigna Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
If your dog struggles with stiff joints, low energy, messy poops, or an itchy coat, the cause might be sitting in your dog's food bowl right now. Kibble. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete, gently air-dried, packed with real canine superfoods to help your dog unlock puppy-like energy, smoother digestion, healthier joints, shinier coats, and more. Thousands have already made the switch. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Welcome back. The end result of mass illegal immigration. We see it time and time again. Haitian illegal alien Robert Joaquin, shielded from deportation by Biden, charged with murdering a 51-year-old Florida mother in Fort Myers. The video is just horrific. It is censored, obviously, but Joaquin walks right up and bludgeons her to death with a hammer. Just keeps hitting her in the face, in the head, as many times as he can with a hammer. Right outside the gas station where she worked, the woman found in a pool of blood. So gruesome, it got the attention of the president, who said this animal was allowed to stay here because the Biden administration granted him and all Haitians temporary protected status, a massively abused and fraudulent program, which my administration is working to terminate, but deranged liberal district court judges are standing in our way. Again, every time you try to deport anybody in this country, you get some political actor that calls himself a judge saying you can't do that. Trump saying this one killing should be enough for these radical judges to stop impeding my administration's immigration policies and allow us to end this scam once and for all. As I've said all along, if you import the third world, you become the third world. Dr. Michael Savage joins us with that. How many of these stories you got to see? Some people are just not fit to live amongst the rest of us in a sophisticated society. That one is vile.
Well, you know, Rob, we have to look at it from the Democrat perspective. Diversity is our greatest strength. Yeah. That's what we have to remember, above all. And also, we have to see it from the Democrat side. This woman probably startled a Haitian, and she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I
feel bad for him, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he really didn't mean to do it. He was just startled by her. And I think that assault hammers must be banned immediately because the hammer did it, not him.
Got to get rid of the hammer.
Yeah, it's the hammers.
Yeah.
So she worked in the store. She was coming out to tell him something, and he went crazy. Mm-hmm. According to the story I read, but that's irrelevant. What's relevant here is that if you import the third world, you become the third world, which I've been saying for years. The fact is we all see it now. And we try to stop it. We try to deport a lot of these people from places that never belonged in this nation. Yeah. Not all immigrants are the same. No. Not everybody is a would-be Albert Einstein who's being held back by white people. Some of them are just crazy, bad murderers. And many of them are involved in the Democrat racket, as you've been pointing out, of fraud. So they're useful to the Democrat machine that uses them in medical fraud, et cetera, and so on. How do you conclude with, how do you solve the problem? Close the borders and start the deportations on a much more serious level. And, of course, Trump's trying to do that. Every time he does, he gets blocked by another fake judge. So we, the people, sit here and have to pay for it over and over again. I think you have the other story. I know you probably don't have the time. The one we can't forget.
I'm gonna show it to you, the Irina Zarutska. Let's show this right now. DeCarlos Brown Jr., the deranged man accused of savagely butchering Irina Zarutska. Remember this on the train? He's sitting right there in the red, right behind Irina, who's in the black. He just stabs her in the neck as many times as he can in front of a train full of people, and most of them just walked away. They couldn't care less about helping her. I hate the people around her just as much as I hate the killer. It was so disgusting to see. Found not competent to stand trial on the state murder charges. A judge now must determine whether or not to accept the report's finding that deemed him not competent. Now, remember, this is a guy that said, I got that white girl after he got off the train. So obviously he had a motive. Obviously he had a racial motive, not competent to stand trial. Now he's still in federal custody facing federal charges. I want to show you this really quick. New Haven, Connecticut's Mayor Justin Elicker. This is the second mayor we found who is just irate over a mural to this beautiful young woman who was slain in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here he is talking about it in his city.
The conversation is an important one to have, but it's about how we have that conversation. And from everything I've seen with this campaign, it's not a really productive way for us to talk about these important issues.
Yeah, you're responsible.
What a sad example of the human race. This is a story that I can't get out of my mind. And once you see that animal cut her throat, and that poor girl looks up at him, your heart breaks. You want to reach out and do anything you can to protect that girl. And you can't. She's dead already. She was dead. He cut her jugular vein. Yeah. And that, the rest of the story is even worse, about as bad as this. Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes is involved with this. She's not even a lawyer. She never went to law school. So she's part of the Charlotte Black Mafia, I call it. I know people are going to get mad at me. The whole city is run by a black mafia. Yep. The mayor, the judge, the attorney general. So they said that he's not guilty, really. He needs to go into rehab. And she owns the rehab center that treats these type of people. She owns a treatment center for violent criminals called a mental health addiction clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's where they want to put this animal. I say no. No, he should get the death penalty. He should be electrocuted for what he did at the very least. But they're saying he's mentally incompetent. How many times has he been arrested before he did this, Rob? Many, many times, right?
Yeah, of course. They don't keep anybody in jail, and it's so vile, and it's just so fashionable. It's so fashionable for liberals to say, let's stop imprisoning people. We don't need jails. It sounds so great to them until it happens to them.
Well, I guess a social worker could have stopped him from cutting Irina's throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you say the people didn't do anything. I understand they were scared to death. You have a maniac with a knife cutting someone's throat.
He was gone.
What can you do unless you have a gun?
He was gone.
Unless you have a gun.
The people next to him, people next to him, the killer was gone, and the people sitting next to her just looked over and said, I'm out of here. And this girl said, oh, my God, I'm dying. I'm bleeding out my neck. And the people all around me, nobody could care less. Everyone just walked away. Nobody even came back until she was already gone. There was a pool of blood on the floor. I watched the whole video. It enraged me to see how little. I just nobody was there to hold her hand as she died on the ground, on the floor of this train. Enraged me.
And a Ukrainian immigrant who was working here, not on welfare. She was a good person trying to start a new life in our country. And this animal, who never belonged in this country to begin with, cut her throat. He should have been executed a long time ago, along with his lawyer, as far as I'm concerned. But look, I don't want to go down this road because I have such rage towards these liberal lawyers, Rob. They're the ones who have ruined this country. It's the lawyers. They're the ones who are ruining the nation. It's not the criminals. It's the lawyers and the fake judges. I think everyone can see through this. Yeah. And what good does it do us? We get outraged and nothing happens.
Yeah, well said. Got to leave it there. Dr. Savage, good to see you. Appreciate it.
I don't know about you, but I am sick of this. Can't he just behave like a normal human? Shut up. Shut up about that. But this is completely irresponsible and disgusting.
Who do you think you are? You're tweeting out the F word on Easter morning? No decent person mocks other people's religions.
How do we 25th Amendment?
Okay, Trump getting slammed by some of his strongest allies over Iran. You've seen these clips. Well, the president has fired back a long-winded post saying, in part, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Alex Jones have been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it's wonderful for Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon because they have one thing in common: low IQs. The president doing what he does on Truth Social, adding they've all been thrown off television, lost their jobs, lost their shows, aren't even invited on TV because nobody cares about them. They are nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. So this is the Iran story, right? And it's gotten very complicated, and there's a big fracture there in the party. Although I maintain the president's not wrong to try and take out a threat against this country. Everybody seems to think that Iran is just no threat to the United States as they build ballistic missiles and a nuclear program. We all believed they were a threat to the United States when Obama did the JCPOA. For some reason, now they're not anymore. Tucker responding to the Trump post, telling our chief White House correspondent James Rosen exclusively, I've always liked Trump and still feel sorry for him as I do for all slaves. He's hemmed in by other forces. He can't make his own decisions. It's awful to watch. If after knowing this man for 10 years, you think that the president is being controlled by anyone else besides his own mind and demeanor, the way he behaves, a tweet like that, you think somebody would post something? Did you read that thing that he wrote about them? Do you think he's being controlled by anybody except himself? A deranged take there from Tucker, but everybody's angry with the president. We'll see how this thing turns out. Maybe they'll come back. All right, the April 15 tax deadline is approaching, but before you file with the IRS, you might want to take a look at this book. It's called Deduct Everything, explaining the impact of the Trump-era tax cuts along with a wide range of deductions and tax-saving strategies. The tax law changes brought significant updates, including standard deduction, estate tax thresholds, business deductions, retirement strategies. Deduct Everything available at bookstores, Amazon. You can get it for free here. The offer on the screen from Newsmax. All right, Kamala with one of the worst impressions you'll ever see up next in News from the Left.
Acts like a mob boss. You take Eastern Europe.
Yeah, and of course, the big moment. We're going to start seeing this Artemis II coming back into our atmosphere. We're going to see glimpses of it here very soon. The splashdown is going to be just after 8 o'clock, they're telling us, but there's going to be some big moments before that toward the end of this show. You'll see it all here live. Stay tuned.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
When we started Allegiance, we were shocked to learn how many American flags are actually made overseas.
If there's one thing that deserves to be made here in America, it should start with the American flag.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America, by Americans, with American materials.
Join our pledge to make the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
Life insurance is too important to put off another day. That's why SelectQuote makes getting coverage you need easy. Now get up to a $2 million policy with no medical exam and same-day coverage.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking LipoBalance support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all three main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
I am a big believer in super beta prostate. You'll notice less urges to urinate, and you won't be getting up at night for so many bathroom trips. I wouldn't say it if I didn't truly believe it.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free spring roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Kamala Harris at the National Action Network with Al Sharpton teasing a potential comeback.
So are you going to run again in 28?
Listen, I might. I'm thinking about it.
We can only hope. Kamala wasn't done, though. Watch this weirdness.
Is when he talks about America first, it's to withdraw from these relationships and these connections. And then he kind of acts like a mob boss. So then he's kind of like, well, you know, you take Eastern Europe, and I'll take the Western Hemisphere. And then you over there, you get Asia. And we'll just divide it up.
She just can't. She can't be a normal human being. There's no way this is a person. This has got to be some kind of alien. Maybe she came on Artemis I. Next up, NBC News suddenly caring about how much money we spend on the Iran war, saying the U.S. has spent billions on the war. What else that money could have bought? Estimated $28 billion the U.S. poured into the Iran war before the ceasefire could have funded a year of daycare for 2 million children or rent for 1.2 million people, according to NBC. You never saw this story about the Ukraine war, did you? When the U.S. spent $188 billion since 2022. But now, of course, we could cure cancer and have flying cars if we just didn't have a war in Iran. And it's still probably less than the Somali fraud. And next up, the New York Times editorial board claiming the 1,500 protesters Trump pardoned on January 6th are on a crime spree. According to the op-ed, the results have been disastrous from the pardon. At least 12 of the pardoned rioters have been charged with other serious crimes, including child molestation, assault, harassment, murder plots, and charges related to a vicious dog attack, adding, one does not have to be a criminologist to predict that people who commit a violent act and are absolved of any punishment might become repeat offenders. Really? You do the recidivism rate on J6ers about 0.8%. Compare that to the average one-year rearrest rate of American felons, it's at 43%. And how hilarious is it to hear the New York Times talk about how if you let people off without punishment, they're going to commit crimes again. Democrats have been doing that in this country for years, and the New York Times applauds it. We don't put anybody in jail anymore. At least we didn't. It's amazing. And finally, never-Trumper George Conway is fighting back tears.
And I was thinking about, well, how much money should I give
to the Biden campaign. So what am I going to give? And then I just thought about it. Well, what do I want my kids to inherit? And I literally was in tears. I pulled over to the side of the road and I was in tears thinking about this. And it's like, I want my kids. It makes me misty-eyed even today. I want my kids to inherit a democracy. You know, it's just more important. It's just more important.
I want my kids to inherit a democracy. George Conway. Oh, how embarrassing. George Conway, he's running for Congress, by the way. That's why you see him all the time right now. All right, Artemis II, minutes away from a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. The space capsule returns to Earth after looping around the moon. A lot of people anticipating that. You're going to see it when we come back.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
And drive your car. And even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions. And when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-844-752-2141 or visit HomeServe.com.
He's breathing. Okay. Go again.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
At Ancestry, we believe every question about the past is a spark. And when curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. How is your family woven into 250 years of U.S. history? Find out now at Ancestry.
I was looking to get a new truck, so I raised my credit scores with Experian Boost. Now, Experian Boost is even better because my monthly insurance payments could help me build credit instantly, free.
More ways to build credit. Download the Experian app.
Doctors' Preferred Liver Defense is doctor-developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple-tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctors' Preferred. Better science, better results.
This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone, building on my progress without starting over. Weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about newer sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
All right, welcome back. We have got breaking news. The big moment is soon to occur. That's actually a live picture you're looking at right there from the capsule. That's Artemis II as it returns to Earth. That's the view from the capsule. As it gets closer and closer to the planet, it's kind of orbiting while descending, and soon it's going to go through the edges of our atmosphere, and I think we'll probably see flames, and we'll see it kind of re-enter, and then you'll see a parachute, and you'll see a splashdown. All of this is going to happen here in the next 15 or 20 minutes. The final stages of this about 10-day mission to go up around the moon and back. They looped the moon. They took a look at the backside of the moon. A lot of conspiracy theories about that. And now they're making their way home, and around 8:07 p.m. Eastern time, they're going to splash down, 5:07 local time, in the Pacific Ocean right outside of San Diego. There's another camera shot we can show of that. They're all out on, I believe, potentially a Navy vessel awaiting that splashdown. You can see right here, there's the shot. The capsule will come right down in that area, Artemis II. We've got NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens joining us now. Bethany, good to have you on. Thanks for having me. This is a great moment. I love the fact that there's a camera inside Artemis II that we're going to be able to watch, and I want to make sure that we know we want to hold that shot for as much of this as we can, because I want to see what they're seeing as they come through our atmosphere. Tell us what we're going to see here over the next couple of minutes, if you could.
Well, I'll start by saying I don't know that I could sum it up better than you. You had a great synopsis there at the top. We are going to see the crew coming through the atmosphere, the upper part of the atmosphere, about 400,000 miles above Earth. And they are going to be entering there, and their planned entry profile, they will be experiencing almost 4 Gs of weight there. Coming in, there will be a short 6 to 7 minute communication blackout. Prior to that, and what you're hearing right now on our feed is a series of checks with Mission Control, making sure that they are following all of their training and coming in on that planned reentry profile for a safe splashdown, which will decrease to about 20 miles per hour when they're actually landing in the ocean.
And just for clarification here, how far above the surface of the Earth are they right now, approximately?
I would have to check the feed to get the exact numbers, but at 7:53, they'll be 400,000 miles above.
So hang on a second. Am I crazy? They're going to drop 400,000 miles in just this brief period of time, and they're going to land at 8 or 7?
Sorry. I'm so sorry. 400,000 feet.
400. Okay. I was like, hang on a second. I was losing my mind there for a minute. No, that's all right. No, I just wanted to know, because I don't know. I don't know how fast this thing can fall, but 400,000. So it's 400,000 feet approximately above the surface of the Earth right now. It's still kind of moving around the Earth as it kind of descends, and we're seeing that live picture. Is this, I mean, you've been at NASA, I don't know how long you've been there. Is this the coolest thing you've experienced?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. And, you know, it's all due to President Trump's commitment to returning America to the moon. In 1972, we had Apollo 17. That was the last time man stepped foot on the moon. President Trump, in his first term, established the Artemis program to return us to the moon. Now we're seeing in his second term the delivery upon that, and we've heard the president say that he will never lose sight of the moon again. This is just the beginning. It's been a flawless mission. We're going to put man's foot back on the moon in 2028, and we're already working on establishing a moon base. That's starting with robotic missions in 2027. It's a historic thing to be a part of. I'm very grateful to be here.
I think, I can appreciate that. I think we're close, within a minute of potentially seeing re-entry. Is that right? You guys had it around 7:53, 7:54 Eastern time?
7:53. We're expecting that, and it's all broadcast live, so it's all there.
It's all happening right here, and we're watching it right here. And you can see how the image has changed. It's gotten a lot darker. You can see we're getting a lot closer. I mean, it's going to be happening here any second now. NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens. If you wouldn't mind standing by, we're gonna jump over to Winston Scott, a former NASA astronaut, just for a minute. But hang with us if you could. Winston, it's good to have you back on the show. What do you think's happening in that capsule right now?
I tell you what, Rob, they're excited. They have a great mission, and now they're getting ready to return home, and they are excited. Now, excitement is a good thing. They are not worried or upset. They're just a couple of minutes, I think, away from entry interface. Yeah. We won't necessarily be able to see interface. They will feel it. They'll begin to feel heavy as they slow down. And then just a moment or so later, it's when they'll enter that ionized plasma field, and there'll be a hot orangish, yellowish glow up around the windscreen. That's that hot plasma generated by their speed through the atmosphere. They're going to hit approximately 30 times the speed of sound, Mach 30. Really coming down very, very fast.
They're flying at that point, and they're getting resistance from our atmosphere, right? And that's the flames that you said.
They're getting resistance from the atmosphere, and that's right. They are going so fast, they're sort of destroying the air, and it comes out in terms of heat and light. Remember Superman flying around the Earth so fast, his suit would burn up if it wasn't made out of kryptonium material? Yeah. That's what they do. They generate 5,000 degrees of temperature.
I think, Winston, we're seeing potentially a shot. I see a light, and it's a very dark shot. I don't know if that's re-entry or not from a very far distance away. I don't know really what I'm looking at here. And I mean, there's going to be moments here where we're not going to have much because they might lose the camera inside of the capsule, and it still might be too far away to see. I don't know which camera we're seeing right there. I don't know if you can tell either, but I can see a little tiny dot that's just moving around a little bit.
I can't tell either because where the camera is located, it's very, very little that we can see. But I can tell you right now, let's see, looks like they may have had entry interface. I'm trying to look at my clock over here. Yeah, they experienced entry interface. So what they're feeling, Rob, they're getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Their suits are pushing down on them. The helmets are pushing down on them. They're feeling because they're flying backwards. They're backwards and upside down. That's why they can see the horizon. But the forces are all this way, and they get heavier and heavier and heavier, pushing themselves into their seats. So, yeah, they're in the middle of reentry right now. They've got about 9 minutes, I think, before touchdown or something like that. They're comfortable inside. The temperature outside is around 5,000 degrees, but their life support system is working properly. They have their launch and entry suits on, so they're very comfortable inside.
Yeah.
They may be inside the fireball right now, so they're marveling at what they see outside.
Yeah,
but
we're just
here's the experience.
Yeah, here's the watch party we see. We're just trying to find shots of anything we can find. You can tell from the ship that's holding it where the splashdown is supposed to occur. I see some people looking up at this point. I saw a few people nod a second ago, so it must not be visible yet from their perspective.
Probably
okay.
not. And remember
that's a visualization. This is not a live picture, I assume. It says visualization on the top there. But that's what you were talking about. That's the reentry and all that friction you get when you come back through, right? That's just a visualization.
Right. Now, Rob, you talked about the ship. Remember, the ship is quite a few miles away. It's outside that keep out zone. They want to be sure that some of the parts that are shredding and shedding from the vehicle, for example, the service module, those things burn up in the atmosphere and they shed shrapnel. So they want to be sure the ship stay out of that zone. I don't know how far they are, but it may be 10 miles or so. Yeah. So the people may or may not be able to see the actual splashdown. Yeah. But after they splash down, the zone is clear, then the Navy ships will steam in to the low of the capsule.
Winston, we're gonna move back over to Bethany for a second from NASA. We appreciate you coming on, though, and I know you're loving this, and we love your enthusiasm when you talk about this stuff. It's good to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bethany, if you're still with us, we were just going to try and get an update from you as we're trying to find a camera to watch here, and there's not one available right now, so we might be in a kind of a bit of a brief moment here, like a blackout.
Yes, we're in the middle of that 6 to 7 minute planned blackout period. We're going to resume communications here soon. As Winston was saying, there's a Navy ship, the USS Mirtha, that they are waiting on. Our NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman is down there awaiting a safe return to help welcome that crew aboard the ship, bring them back safely home. We will resume communications with them at 7:59.
At 7:59, which is about 16 seconds away. So we're moving in towards the end of this show, and then we're going to have Finnerty up next, is going to continue the coverage of this. And I might have missed it because I had someone in my ear, but when do you think we'll be able to visually see something as it comes in?
See the capsule or the crew?
Yeah, see the capsule.
The capsule you'll be able to see shortly.
Shortly.
8:07 p.m. is going to be the splashdown. You're going to be able to see it in those couple of minutes leading up there. So probably around 8:04 or 8:05.
8:04. So a couple minutes before we have splashdown, we'll be able to see something coming in. Bethany Stevens from NASA, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. Thanks a lot. Bill Essayli is in for Rob Finnerty tonight. Bill, we're looking at a visualization of what we're going to see in a minute because there's not a good camera to take us to it right now, right?
Rob, I'm glad you pointed that out, that it says visualization because the conspiracy theories start right away. So very happy you clarified that.
Just so I would know that it's not the real thing. You know, I'm glad they did that. Bill, take it away. Good to see you.
All right, you too, Rob. Thank you.